I'm Marie Elizabeth Molly, and this is Relationship Alchemy. Today, I'm speaking with Marilyn Alauria on how to use your intuition to make powerful decisions. Marilyn is a gifted psychic medium, teacher, and author of the book Guides, Mystical Connections with Soul Guides and Divine Teachers. After a successful Emmy Award-winning career in the entertainment industry with MTV and NBC Olympics, Marilyn shifted her focus to sharing her natural gifts and helping others discover their own intuitive abilities. She has an unmatched capacity to ignite deep soul-level transformation for her clients around the world. And I'm so excited for this conversation because every conversation we've had before when I went on her podcast, and we've also just chatted, we've had such a great connection. There's such a beautiful alignment with the way we approach our work and how we see things. And there's even the New York thing in common. So I'm super excited to bring Marilyn today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Marie Elizabeth. I'm excited to be here and get into this conversation and shift the energy that we're starting with.
I know, both of us have had a day.
And it's only 11 a.m., but it's okay.
I know, exactly. How can that be? But you know, some days are like that. And I think that's a great place to begin, because I feel like sometimes when people think about intuition or talk about using intuition more effectively in your life, there's some perception that you have to be perfect and tuned in and aligned all the time. And I want to kind of bust that. Like, you and I are both very down to earth, myth busting kind of people. And so let's start there.
Yeah, it's one of my biggest issues, because it's done a lot of harm to a lot of people. When people go out there and proclaim that they're spiritual teachers and they have it all figured out now and they're living in bliss and happiness, and then other people think they've got it wrong. Like, they're like, wait a second, I'm meditating, I'm connecting. Why aren't I happy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? And that's not the way it works.
It's just not.
No. What happens, I feel like, and I'm sure you agree, is we get techniques and tools that make things go a little bit easier when the crap hits the fan. But I just think we have to keep being myth busters so that people realize they're not doing it wrong. They're actually doing it right. And it's just life.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be so precious. I feel like there's part of me, and I think you're similar, that kind of rebels against the elevated, precious, sitting on the high throne of intuitive authority kind of model that we've been taught around being spiritual, whether we're spiritual teachers or just spiritual people. And I really feel like it's so important to be in the world too, to recognize we're in duality, we're living in these bodies, shit happens, and it's how we respond to that and how connected can we stay through the ups and downs that really matters more.
Yeah,
right?
I agree with that completely. Because like when I first came on the scene as like a psychic medium, and I right away got into telesummits, and I got introduced to a world of a lot of spiritual people. And when I was around them, I was like, man, I can't stand these people, because they were so woo-woo unicorn riding, not grounded, love everyone. And it wasn't real. Like, I've met people that are very spiritually grounded people that actually do have a great amount of compassion for everyone. And you could tell the difference from a real person who's grounded in that from another person who's making it up on the fly just because they want to seem a certain way. Amen. And I get very Brooklyn in that kind of place. I'm like, oh, I do not like this. This is not for me. And at first I thought there was something wrong with me. And then I was like, yeah, no, it's just not for me.
Yeah, I love that. I got really Brooklyn with that. I so relate. Yeah. Because it's like, there is a part of me that kind of likes to poke at that thing, even, and similarly, I'm like, oh, is that something wrong with me? Like, do I need to be more floaty?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I need
more
to be
loving more, and
right, more loving and more, but there's a certain, we all have intuition, wouldn't you say?
Yes, completely.
It's not that special. I mean, I was going to say it's not that deep, but it is deep, but it's not that special. Like,
no, we all
have, and we can learn how to access it better, right?
Completely. And it doesn't matter what age you're at. It's the same with all the psychic clairs too, all the gifts.
Yeah.
You're not supposedly just born with it. Yes, it runs in my family, and I had it when I was little. Yeah. But even if you didn't, you probably did, but didn't recognize it. And it doesn't matter what age you're at, you can open up to these gifts at any moment in time. And that's what I like to teach people, is how to use your physical senses to access your psychic senses.
Oh man, say
So
more about
important.
that. That's great.
Yeah, for me, when it all started happening and opening up for me, and I know you, Marie Elizabeth, you probably have stories too about this, right? The internet wasn't around then. So there were some books, there was very few classes. So I really had to learn from my guides.
Mm.
And I'm so grateful for that, because I started studying so much with my guides, and they were teaching me about clairvoyancy and hearing, audience. And when I started stepping into rooms where I found teachers, they were so boxed in their approach that it would have killed all my creativity and my gifts.
Wow.
So I like to teach people how to use everyday physical senses, like the way you're seeing the tree outside and how it's communicating to you. And that is clairvoyancy, or repetitive symbols, or the noises you're hearing at a specific time, how that could be giving you information. Yeah. Because our guides use our physical being and our life experience to communicate with us. So that's why I think anybody can do it at any time, and you already have what you need to do it.
Amen. I mean, even something as simple as noticing, sometimes there's a similar time of the day that pops up. Like for example, one of my best friends and I have a habit of whenever either one of us sees 11:11, we text 11:11 to each other, no matter what time zone, it's 11:11 in the time zone I'm in,
right? Even
if she's elsewhere or whatever. Wherever we are, if it's 11:11, morning or night, we text each other with a heart, and then the other one responds with 3 hearts. And it's just a way that we acknowledge connection, like feeling connected. And sometimes we're both on the same time zone and we beat each other. It's like, oh, you beat me, like you got yours in first. Like it's just a fun game we play that has us kind of recognize those moments of synchronicity that are happening all the time, but largely out of our awareness, Or for me, I'm also in a habit of very much noticing if I ever get a parking spot, like right in front of a store, I say, thank you. It's just these little moments of acknowledging that there's more at work in our daily space than what we see. So if someone wanted to start using their intuition more, as we're talking about today, for making powerful decisions, where could they start? Would it be with something like looking at a tree, or what would you recommend?
Well, it's kind of goes along with the story you just said. It's about consciousness, right? You're becoming conscious to those moments of 11:11, and when you're seeing them, and then you're giving credibility to it by sharing it with a friend. And many people think they have to, and you know this, Marie Elizabeth and I have spoken a lot, so we do have similar teachings, which I love. It's not outside of you, it's inside of you. So many people think they're getting it, wrong, or they have to study a certain way. And really what it is bring consciousness into your life. And you're going to start activating your intuition, because you're going to know how you feel about a situation. And that's giving you information. So there's different levels of it. But the first thing that I would say is really notice how you feel before you act or before you do something. Notice how you feel before you go to a party. Notice how you feel before you answer an email. And then when you go into the experience, notice if what your feeling was telling you about it. And you're going to start recognizing, wait a second, when I was answering that email, I was feeling anxious. And I thought it was just me, or there's something wrong with me. And why can't I go to a party? And then you go to the party and somebody's there that really just sets you off. And you're like, oh, my intuition was telling me that this is not really good for me. I think a lot of this teaches us how to honor ourselves more than anything. And that's really important to me.
I love that you start with feeling what's happening in our bodies.
Yes.
Because I think another one of the misnomers is it's idea, that it's somehow out here. And for those of you who are listening, I'm gesturing above my head, that it's somehow out there. And it sure, we're connected to all that is, but our bodies are the instrument through which we experience everything, right? And so starting with that feeling and then checking that feeling against what actually happens. Is that what I heard you say, basically?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways, but you said something that is so important that I teach all the time. Your body is the instrument. And I'm constantly teaching my students, you are the instrument. just because, I'm clairvoyant, clairaudient, claircognizant, clairsentient, empathic. A lot of us are. You can develop them at any time, right? But those are the gifts that I use all the time. And just because I see things a certain way, if you don't see it the way that I see it, does not mean that you're not clairvoyant.
Yeah.
Use your instrument. And that is so I'm like, you have to learn how to play your instrument, and you can't learn how to play your instrument if you're doing it exactly as Sally Joe does it. That's not your instrument.
Right. Oh, I'd love to unpack that a bit more, because I've spent a lifetime. So I was clairsentient first, and then clairaudience came pretty fast after that. But the clairvoyant, I mean, when I started meditating and doing yoga in my early 20s, I just couldn't see. Seeing was just not my gift. And I would work with my clients, and seeing was not how I would receive information. So I felt like something was wrong with me. And this is the thing I want to address, is I felt like something was wrong with me for years, because it's like, here I am doing all these practices and blah, blah, blah. And I'm super intuitive, and I download what my clients need. Like, all of that's working fine, but I can't see, and I don't have these amazing visual experiences when I meditate, and I don't see people's auras. Like, I tried to do all the aura shit and I could never see it. And here I am in my 50s, and all of a sudden, every now and then I'll get visions of things unasked. Like, I don't even try for that, because it's not my sense. I'm like, oh, I just lean on the hearing and the feeling, because I'm like, oh, vision is not my thing. But now in my 50s, all of a sudden, the vision thing is starting to open up. And it's interesting. Like, I'm not getting lost in it, but it's curious to me. It's like, wow, that's so interesting. I got a flash of an image instead of the other thing for that. And so I'm playing with it. And so I'd like you to say a bit more about how people can learn to trust just like what you said, their own progression, their own opening, which senses are strongest, to how, like, if someone's just starting to open up or starting to lean on their intuition more, how do they trust that what they're receiving is true, and that what they're experiencing is enough, so to speak?
Yeah, you said so many things in that. So
I know, sorry, my brain
that's
is
okay.
all over the place.
And I will end this with a tip or technique on how to tune into your intuition too, so everybody knows how to do that as well.
Awesome.
Maybe not this particular, but at the end of the podcast. So I want everybody to recognize that. I first want to go to what you said about clairsentient first, and then clairaudience opening up. Usually they highlight one or two gifts first, so that you become super strong in them. I've been teaching people for like thousands of people all around the world for quite some time. And they'll always say to me, like, I can't see. That's like the biggest one that people want. And I'll work with them, and I'm like, yeah, but you're feeling and hearing. So why are you worried about seeing?
Yes.
And you're not giving the gift the credibility. You're just, again, we do this in life, right? We focus on what we don't have instead of what we do have.
Right.
And you were conscious to see it, which is great. So that was good. So first off is they usually will make one gift or two gifts really strong before they open up other gifts. That's usually what they're doing, because that is a comfortable way for you to communicate with them. You're comfortable in clairsentience. You're comfortable in clairaudience. Those are such cool gifts to have.
Yeah.
The way to trust. So when I was opening up, I was channeling right away. It happened really fast for me. And there's a whole story behind that, but I'll basically say I did a lot of dream work for 10 years. And that gave me a lot of techniques and tools to trust when I started channeling, because of the teacher I was working with. You weren't allowed to second guess yourself in the dream work. Ooh. So it helped. But I was channeling, and I said to my guides one day, how do I know if I'm making this up? And they said, who cares? We're giving you great advice. And they were right.
So true.
They taught me that all of it's in imagination, all of it's in creativity. And I'm so glad that they taught me that, because then when I went into those rooms with some really powerful mediums, and I'm doing air quotes for everybody because I just think they're antiquated in their thinking.
Yeah.
And they would say, don't use your imagination. So everybody was afraid. And my guides were like, that's where we are. That's where we're hanging out, in your imagination. So the biggest tool I give to people to trust is, I say, trust for 30 days. Promise and commit to trust for 30 days. And every time the doubt slips in, put your hands in the air and say, I'm trusting. I'm on day number, I have 28 days left. I'm trusting. By the 30th day, you will have worked the muscle of trust. And also you will have the evidence that trusting is worth it.
I love that you brought in the word evidence. And I'm curious if you do this with your students. I have clients keep an evidence journal. Like when you're changing patterns, long-standing patterns in your life, there's so much evidence for the old shit and the old way of doing it. And you do have to trust the new pathway that you're trying to create. You got to trust it before you see it in a certain way, right? So I have them keep an evidence journal of moments where things go well, moments where they make a choice, a new choice versus the old reaction, moments where they tried something new and it was the thing, moments where they get that parking spot in front of the store, whatever it is, where you're building that muscle like you're talking about, that muscle of trust, that muscle of evidence in the thing that we're wanting to create. Do you do something similar?
I don't, and it's a great idea. And I think I don't because when I channel, I record everything because I won't remember.
Yeah.
And that evidence was recorded for me. So it was just natural. So I would go back to a recording. I have like hundreds of them. And they would say, go to file 5, number 22, whatever. I'm just making up numbers. And I would listen to it and I'd be like, holy mackerel, everything they said happened.
Wow.
So I think it's a great idea to give people evidence journals to do that because you forget and you don't give it credibility and you forget that they said something or they showed you something or like you said, made better choices in the moment. Yeah. So thank you for that tool. I think it's a great tool.
Well, I love your idea too, because it'd be so easy to just record a voice note too.
Yes.
Like, oh, today, I had the feeling to turn right on a street I don't normally go down. And I ran into a friend I haven't seen in forever and really wanted to connect with, whatever. Like, whether if a voice note is easier than a journal, great. Like, but I think it's the key part is to record it because we, like you said, we forget and we tend to focus on the negative. So we doubly forget.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too, people always say to me, how do you grow your intuition or why did I go against it? And I'm like, that's how you learn. Mm-hmm. With intuition, especially, the way that you learn how to engage it is by going against it, because then you're like, I had that feeling, I ignored it, and that's my intuition. And you start really knowing that feeling inside your body. So I think keeping a recording is great, and keeping a recording of how you're feeling as you're making the decision would be really great as well.
You say, this flashed for me when you were talking earlier about having a feeling like being anxious before a party or something, and then running into somebody that, et cetera. How do you distinguish when you're first starting to learn what is your intuition and just what is pure anxiety? Like, fancy,
So one of the techniques and tools, and this is the one I was going to share that I think is really, really helpful, is to go into your body and breathe. And for me, intuition lives where clairsentience lives, which is the third chakra, which is above the navel. So that's where my intuition lives. Other people's intuitions may be in their heart, maybe in their throat, maybe in your fingertips. That's why you learn how to use your instrument.
Exactly.
So I would have people take a lot of deep breaths and go into their physical body where they just feel intuition is, or they feel good. Mm-hmm. And then summon up a memory of something that feels really, really good to them. And then associate a color with that memory. Mm-hmm. And then we would dissolve that, wipe that away, and bring up something that is very unpleasant and associate a color with that unpleasant experience. So I break it down to visuals so that when they're making a decision, they go into that physical spot in their body and notice what color shows up. And even if it's like, mine is usually yellow and black, right? So yellow's yes, black is a no. It's like your body's a pendulum. Oh, cool. Learning how the yes and no's of your body. And I'll talk about a neutral response in a second. Mm-hmm. So if it's a golden color, decide that's in the yellow family. So you're going to, that's a yes. It's saying do it. So I feel like when we're in anxiety, we're in our head, we're in our thoughts, we're in those patterns that you break. Yeah. Jump into the body and get into feeling. And so many people struggle, because I coach people, and I'll give you another tip real quick, but so many people struggle with dropping from their head into their heart. So there's two ways to do this. One is I feel, instead of I think. If you're saying I think, you're in your head. The other way is to put your hands on your heart and really drop your inner perception down to your hands.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
then you'll be
that
more.
warmth can really help.
What'd you say?
That warmth can really help you find it.
Totally. And for me, everything is inner perception. It's an inner guidance. So when I'm tuned into my guide, like I'm tuned into one of my guides right now talking to you, you don't even exist for me. My inner perception is completely on my guide. So when I'm doing, if I do readings, I very rarely do readings now, but if I do readings, I do them in my group programs.
Yeah.
I'm very much in tune with my guides, and I'm not even, and they're just telling me all the information I need to give to you.
Yeah.
So that's the same thing. You're developing an inner awareness, an inner guidance system. That is your intuition. So that's how I would have people do it. I think I was going to tell you something else, but I can't remember. It was I think and feel. No, I did both.
No, you did both. It was beautiful. So, and I love the clarity of this tip to do sort of the legwork before you start training a skill. I heard you say was to drop in and associate a color with what feels good, and then again a color with what doesn't feel good, so that you have those two colors already set, as it were. And then when you need to make a decision, you drop in, and then it's more of a noticing what color shows up, and there's your answer, because you've already sort of preconditioned the barometer in a way. Is that accurate?
And then what may happen is you may say you get a yellow, and you go and you do the thing.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, that really wasn't a great experience. Why did I get yellow? Well, you want to definitely pay attention to, did you force it? Did it just drop in? Did it just show up? How does your instrument work? But the other reason too is usually there's something you had to learn that was deepening your own soul's work.
Yes.
So it doesn't mean, to me, there's never no's. Like everything that my guides told me a while ago, a no is just a yes in disguise.
Ooh, I love that.
So everything is like information. And then I'll talk about neutrality real quick. So sometimes there's a neutrality. So that might be like a gray color. I don't usually have people work with that, but it's usually a neutral feeling. Really what that means is your guides or whatever you believe in, doesn't matter if you go or don't go. The experience doesn't matter. Like sometimes I'll be like, should I do this? Should I not do it? Should I do this? Should I not do it? And they're just giving me neutral. And it's because if you do it, it's going to be good. If you don't do it, it's going to be good. There's something you're going to learn from both experiences, from your decision making. So that's the neutral. Because if you think about pendulums, they're a yes, no, neutral.
Yes, or neutral. Do you find sometimes, I find if I can't get a clear yes or no, it's because I'm actually not ready to decide yet.
Yes.
So it can be, well, either one is fine. Just pick one. But for me, sometimes it's like, oh, I'm actually not ready to make this decision, or I'm not dropped in enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, oh, I'm hovering up here because I still have up here. I'm gesturing to my head for those of you listening. I'm hovering up in my head because I'm actually not ready to hear the answer.
Yes.
And for me, it usually is a hearing and a feeling combination. And let's say somebody doesn't see, let's say somebody drops in and they can't access, let's say a yellow or a black or, whatever the color. I get a kind of, in case this is useful to somebody, if color isn't available to you, there's a kind of clunk. I don't have a better word for it than a clunk, but there's a kind of clunk, a settling I feel in my system when it's a yes, something, if I get myself down low enough, and for me, it's a little bit below the navel where I access really my core intuition. And especially if I'm looking for a yes or a no, I often go, it's like sits sort of like above my womb. And there's a kind of settling, and it's literally like a clunk when it's a yes, and there's a kind of, it just feels different when it's a no. And I'm describing it vaguely because sometimes it is like that. It doesn't always come through as clearly as a color this way or that for me. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it's just kind of like a settling and a knowing. And I'm like, oh, that's a yes. But if there's some agitation or some, where it doesn't settle or there's a contraction, then that's in the no space. So I'm just sharing that in case someone's more kinesthetic and maybe they perceive it more like that way, like a tightening or a relaxing. Who knows?
No, I think that's really important. I'm going to go to first the not getting an answer yet.
Yeah.
And you're right about that. Your soul may need some more guidance or some more learning, or there might be some more information that has to come in before you make the decision.
Yeah.
Although I did hear really great advice on Smart List, the podcast Smart List, where they said, if you had to go tomorrow, what would your answer be? It's almost like the flipping of the coin one.
I love that.
Yeah. If you had to go in an hour, what would your answer be? And you'd be like, no, and we deny certain things about ourselves because we think we're supposed to act a certain way.
Yeah.
And then I want to talk about what you said, and I'm so glad you brought that up for the person who doesn't see the clunking. It's a beautiful, your instrument, Maria Elizabeth, which is great. So if the color doesn't work, first of all, I tell people to impose a color, pick a color, because that's your power.
Yeah.
But you can pick a sound. You can pick a feeling. You can choose a smell. There's so many different things that you can choose as your yes or no so that it works for you. Which is really great. Your yes may be in your heart. Your no may be in your second chakra or in your throat. So just start playing with different things and you'll know this is my yes, this is my no, and that's okay.
I want to, before we wrap, I love this conversation. I could talk to you forever. And we're nearing the end of our time, but I want to address this idea that when we follow our intuition, that it somehow ensures that it's going to be easy or that it's going to work out well. And I say, well, kind of in quotation marks, because who are we to judge? What's good for our soul isn't always what our personalities want. So, how do we know what's really good in the end, I think. And so could you say a word about that, sort of how you touched on it, how following your intuition, sometimes you do have a hard experience and it can feel like, oh, did I make a mistake? And it's like, just because it was hard doesn't mean it was wrong. Can you say more about that?
Yeah. And I think it goes back to how we started out this podcast about everything isn't blissful and the people that pretend that it is. So when you approach life as everything is happening for me, not to me, it shifts your whole experience, right? So if you're getting a yes and you go to an experience and it really is an unpleasant experience, there is something so magical and beautiful underneath it. And if you can just shift the perception of how you experience it, you're going to get a deeper wisdom that's going to blow your mind and is going to be a domino effect into something even greater and bigger that's not even in your awareness. So the fact that you brought that up is so beautiful and great because we are always being set up for something even bigger and greater that's behind it, especially as we're aligning with our souls and living more of our truth. And a moment like that of something not being great, even though we followed it, it's not about second guessing yourself. It's not about trusting yourself. It's about asking yourself, well, what am I really supposed to get from this moment? Why did they give me a yes? Why did I get a yes? Did I deny my feelings? Did I deny something inside myself? Did I need to come here and have this conversation so I stand in my courage and my strength? What character building moment am I having right now? I think when I surrendered completely to all of that, and I really do live for the most part like that, and I really surrendered to my guides and everything because I communicate with guides, life became a lot more interesting. I'm not going to say easy because I had, I've had moments where it's like, oh my freaking goodness. But when you want to walk your mission, Maria Elizabeth, which I know you're teaching people, and walk why you're here, there's so much deliciousness. And there's also some really crappy moments that that we need to have in order to be prepared for what we're doing. So I'm going to just caveat this for a second. I just have to say one more thing. It's like, I would say to something, they're like, yeah, I'm ready to write that book. And I'm like, well, your book is sitting at a bestseller. Are you really ready to have that kind of recognition? Yeah, I'm ready. And then I'll check in with the person a month later. I'm like, how's that book going? Oh, I haven't had a chance. You're
Mm,
not ready for what the universe has for you. So you
mm,
pause.
mm.
So every one of these moments is getting us ready for what we know in our heart and souls we're supposed to have. Does that make sense?
That
Because I
makes
went through a
a
little
total, no, that makes total
Okay.
sense. And I got such chills when you said that. And I feel a little emotional too, because I mean, I'm like you, I'm in a shift in my business at the moment. And, I can tend to get down on myself when I'm pausing.
Yeah.
And to hear it put that way, to have permission, like, yeah, maybe I'm not 100% ready for the recognition that's about to come. And maybe I need more time to mature over here as I get the new stuff ready. And maybe a pause is what's needed. And even trusting that, like, let's not make the pause wrong. Let's not make ourselves wrong for not starting the book yet. Let's start the book as soon as we can. Let's not let the book languish for 5 more years. Let's start the book. And if there is some heel dragging going on, like, how do we soften around that and recognize, oh, maybe I'm not ready, and shift the question to what do I need to do to get ready
Yeah.
versus what's wrong with me?
Yeah. So it's an active pause, right? Are you in an active pause right now?
Yes.
Me too.
I'm
Yeah.
in a super active pause, and there's like little movement ahead, and then there's another pause, and
Yeah.
there's some more movement, and then another pause, and getting okay with that, recognizing that's part of building the stronger vessel too.
Yes.
Because when sometimes things come to us before we're ready and we blow them up.
Yes.
You know.
So that's my thing. Like the person I was explaining, she's not at an active pause. She's
Mm.
kind of like turning her back and not dealing with what's really underneath it all.
Oh,
You're in an active pause.
yeah.
Where you are consciously looking at even yourself being in the pause. Like, why am I in this pause? What is going on? I know I could see this. The work that you're doing is incredible, but you're ready to launch into the world. And the pause is you're getting ready for what that is going to do. And also to stand in the moment of it. You'd stand in the greatness of it. So I would ask people to really, if you're in a pause, do the questions you just said. Why am I in this pause? What is this about? Am I afraid? Am I fearful? Or am I just unsure? Even if you're afraid and fearful, that's okay. You're in an active pause asking those questions.
Yes.
It's the people that go into denial that I can no longer assist.
Yeah.
I can only assist those who are very like I went back to therapy. I left again recently, but I went back for a short period of time. And I said to her, I can't find my truth. Help me find my truth. That's an active experience.
Yes. And
it's asking for help for that. What are you going to say?
And how necessary is it as we grow to take those times to slow down and deepen in that way?
Yes.
Right? Because sure, like for this next phase, some surface level of truth is not enough. You needed to take that time to access the deeper thing. And that doesn't always happen when we're moving full steam ahead. I mean, life will slow us down sometimes. And sometimes that slowdown, in my experience, comes in the form of fogginess, lack of clarity, depression, fatigue, injury. Like my back hurts right now. Like there's just a bunch of stuff kind of putting on the brakes. And it's like, how do we learn to trust that? Coming back to trust. How do we learn to trust that is part of the necessary experience that's happening, and not only the sunshine and rainbows and unicorns stuff,
Yeah. And I feel like for me, it's about that inner perspective and not living from the outside in. It's living from the inside out. So it's not in comparison of JoJo's doing it this way, and I should be doing that, and I should be out there with this funnel and that, da, 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 da. And it's like, woohoo, wait a second. because I'm doing it right now too, building an opt-in for my new program. And then I'm reading a book, a really good book. And I'm like, wait a second, this isn't the right opt-in. And here I am like prepping it. And it's okay. So the pause has to happen. So that's an active pause for me.
Yes.
We have to be our own best friends through the process, right?
Yeah.
And
and grace to discover it wasn't the right opt-in before you fully built it out.
Exactly. How many times have I done that? And I've been like,
I just blew months and thousands of dollars on this thing, and it's not the thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's such a great, thank you for bringing that in. I think it's so important for people to hear these truths because there's so much fluff in the other direction. I don't know how else to put that.
And there needs to be more conversations like this so that people can recognize when they're running businesses that this stuff happens.
Yeah, when they're running businesses, or let's say they hit a flat spot in their marriage and they're questioning, whether or not they want to continue. That might be time for an active pause.
Yeah.
Like it may not be time to make a decision, yes or no, about the marriage. It may be a time for you to deepen your relationship with yourself, your trust, your connection to your intuition, asking yourselves the questions that we've been bringing forward. And when you know, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know this from doing relationships, and I know this from doing readings for so many years when people would come to me and like, should I leave my husband? Should I leave my wife? And there was like 2% or 5% of the times when I could tell like this is over, right? Yeah. Most of the times it was exactly what you said. You need to deepen your relationship with yourself. You're expecting your husband to give you all the creativity and the excitement in life. You need to find that yourself. And then as people went on the journey, they would figure it out, like what was the right decision.
Yeah.
Those big decisions are not in cloudiness. They're actually in clarity. We both know that. We're not making those decisions from a place of fog.
Right. And if fog is present, don't make the decision yet.
No.
Right?
No.
Yeah. So I love this. We've been talking about how to use your intuition to make powerful decisions. And I'm so grateful that you were here today. I could talk to you forever. And is there anything else that you want to share in closing? I feel like you've shared so much already, but is there one more thing you'd want to close with? Oh, no. I know you have a free gift you want to share with folks.
Yeah, free gift. And I also have a podcast too that I think you can learn more about me. So go to Who Can It Be Now as my podcast. Actually, Maria Elizabeth's on there. So you can listen to our interview, which was so great.
I loved it.
And then I would say right now, go to my website, marilynalauria.com, and check out what I have there. And then we will put the free gift I have is joinsas.com, joinsas.com. It's a little different. What'd you say?
I was going to say all of that is going to be in the show notes. So the website, your social media handles, your free gift, it's all going to be in the show notes. So go down there and check it out. What were you going to say?
That's really it, because the Join SAS will give them a little bit of a tool of how to really become conscious in the moment. It's a very cool tool that many people have used and still use to this day. And then the way I would wrap it up is trust yourself. Keep coming to places like Maria Elizabeth's podcast and listening to her and her interviews, and learn how to be around people that are truthful and authentic, and trust yourself.
Yes, trust yourself. I always say a great relationship starts with you. That's really the tagline of Relationship Alchemy. And I feel this way about self-trust, about intuition, about creating a great life. It all starts with you.
Yeah.
That all starts with trust. So thank you for highlighting that today. Thank you for the beautiful work you're doing in the world. I'm so grateful you're out here doing what you're doing. And I'm so happy we're connected. And thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
Till next time, folks, that was Marilyn Alauria. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. We'd love to hear from you, what landed with you, what you're taking away. And until next time, remember that a great relationship and life start with you.